let's see whether this audio quality is good. Okay, maybe I might turn it down just a little bit. There we go. Hello everybody who is hopefully we get a few viewers pouring in right now. I know that I started the stream just a little bit early, but we still got a few moments yet before 8 o'clock, so I'm not going to start the stream just yet. In fact, it's 8 o'clock right now. I'm just going to wait for a few more a few more viewers even to appear. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to wait a few more moments for a few more viewers to stream in. I just don't want anybody to miss the start. I've heard that the sprint race is quite interesting, so I'm just going to wait a moment and then I'll do my usual summary of the events that happened in the group chat since last race. So we'll do that, but we are literally starting in under 60 seconds. There we go, we've got one more. I've just posted a little message, hopefully that will recruit a few more people into the live stream. I'm quickly going to go over to the standings and download them, and we shall start. Okay, here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Aero League Racing. I hope you've enjoyed the past week. We're back for the penultimate round of Season 10. This is Round 7 of 8, Season 10 of Tier 3 of Aero League Racing. Of course, this is raced every Monday night at 8 o'clock, but we're doing the commentaries a bit different this week. We're doing a commentary after the race, a few days after the race, that everybody can log into and watch live, as opposed to having to have the commentary on in the background like you do in other leagues. Now, I probably sound a little bit differently. Basically, every single time that I watch back the commentaries that I do, it's ridiculous how much my microphone pops. So I've now got my microphone about a foot away from my face, as opposed to, it was basically touching my lips last week. Hopefully it cuts out a little bit less, but if anybody hears the microphone cutting out, popping, please let me know and I can adjust it. And that also means, because it's further away from my face, the sensitivity is higher. It means you can hear the fan in the background. Just ignore it. Hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction. Anyway, this is the penultimate round of the championship, and this is an incredibly exciting moment, ladies and gentlemen, because last week was around Fuji. If I remember correctly, it was an absolutely crazy race. So, as I explained last week, Alpha Zad, who is Hurricane, who was the leader of the championship, was absent last week around Fuji, meaning he was able to score 0 points, and all of the drivers who were previously about 12 or 15 points behind him were all able to catch up. So right now we have a 5-way battle for the championship in the penultimate round of the championship. You cannot make this up. At the moment, the driver who's actually first is the driver, hang on a minute, he's starting all the way back in P13. This is my genuine reaction to this. It's L. Ian / X Allen. Trust me, it's the same guy. He's currently first in the championship, 143 points. He put in a pretty decent effort last week in Fuji. He won the sprint, he came 4th in the feature, if I remember. Well, he's all the way down in P13, obviously quali. Well, he's last, so I'm not too sure. Quali ban, there we go, thank you viewers. So he gets a quali ban and he's last on Laguna Seca. We've got a few absences if 13th is last. Hurricane, still P2 in the championship, but, well, he's nowhere to be seen, ladies and gents. He's still absent again, another week. I believe last week he did actually post in the forums that he was going to be absent for another week in a row. I do hope that he's back for the season finale next week around Mount Panorama, but as it stands, he's still P2 in the championship. P5, of course, now, after this race, he's probably going to be about 20 points behind. P3, Pasty 87, we'll make this quick. Pasty 87, who is on the front row of the grid. Pasty 87 only 7 points behind Ian right now, and he's got a significant advantage in this sprint, qualifying on the front row. We'll see how it goes. Alphazad in P4 and Polty in P5. Look at that. Alphazad in pole position. He's actually only 1 point behind Pasty, so this is going to be interesting. And then Polty, he's a number of points behind. He's about 20 points behind the man who is currently leading the championship. So all of you guys have got to remember Polty, and of course the leader X Allen, and then Pasty, and then in P4 actually Alphazad. Of course Hurricane, he's absent, but who cares? Anyway, enough summary and exposition. We are going to start this race. In fact, we're quickly going to put on the UI to immerse everybody in the race. Of course, we've already kind of gone through the grid. We've got Alphazad currently in P4 the championship. He starts on pole position and he gets a pretty dreadful start right there. Crazy amount of wheel spin. Pasty 87 is able to almost overtake him, but then he gets slowed down by Alphazad in front. It almost looked like Auto Attillon was about to go for an overtake, and there's an incident immediately on lap 1. Ladies and gents, am I going to do it? You predicted it. I'm going to do it. I never like doing a restart in a live stream, but I'm going to do it. So what happens right here? Gin Tonics tries to go down the inside. First of all, he cuts the white line, so he ends up getting a time penalty. He's bumping along with Tap. He breaks. That's why Tap ends up hitting him down the rip. He ends up hitting into Pasty, spinning out, and he also ends up sending Auto Attillon around as well, who ends up hitting into, I believe that is actually the it isn't Gin Tonics' teammate, but it's a completely separate driver. O'Leary J ends up getting hit, and the sufferers of that, Gin Tonics, Auto Attillon, O'Leary J, and I believe it may have been Tap's fault, and I think Tap's watching live right now, so we'll see whether it turned out that Tap was reported. And to be honest, I think the incident outcomes will be coming out in a few days, so we'll see whether that affects Tap's championship. Of course, Tap, he's currently down in P9 in the championship right now, but in the past, he's done pretty good actually. He scored P5 and P8 last week in Fuji. So not much going on at the front here. Of course, Alphazad, the man in P4 of the championship, he is currently leading. Alphazad is, I tell you what, he's had a string of pretty good performances. You know, at the start of the season, he didn't do too well. I think he scored P13 and P12 a couple of times, so he didn't get a lot of points. And that's why when I first started commentating in round 5, he was actually quite low down the grid. Well, he's secured, podium after podium, a couple P1s as well. Alphazad is now probably my favourite to win the championship. I know it's a controversial opinion, but man, he's currently leading the sprint, and he's particularly good in quali and particularly good in the sprint. I reckon he's probably going to win the sprint race again here in Laguna Seca, an incredibly difficult track to overtake on. Looking up and down the grid right now, not a lot going on. I'm going to quickly follow Polty right now. He's obviously P5 of the championship. He's still got an opportunity to win this championship, or at least get a top 3 finish. He's trying to go down the inside of M. Montava in the, of course, we discussed Montava last week. He's in the bloody Ford Mustang. You know, 2-3 seasons ago, Ford Mustang, best car in the game. Now, worst car in the game, because with this new physics update, weight is everything, and Mustang, one of the heaviest cars in the game, and unfortunately, as soon as you get a little bit of dirt on your wheel in Laguna Seca, you are going to be suffering for the entire lap. I tell you what though, X Allen, he's in the Lexus RCF. He's already up into P9, of course. He started at the back of the grid. He got a quali ban last week. He's obviously a little bit naughty around Fuji there. He's a little bit wide around, is that about turn 7 or 8? I forgot to download the track map, ladies and gents, so I'm not going to be quoting corner names this weekend. My apologies. That is definitely a rookie mistake, but I'll see if I can count along and see if I can memorise some of the corner names. I do know what this one is. It's the final corner. And Alphazad is currently in the lead of the race by, I'd say, about 1.5 seconds there in front of Pasty. Going a bit more in depth between... well, there we go. I was about to say going a bit more in depth in this battle between Alphazad and Pasty. Ladies and gentlemen, they're separated by 1 point at the moment. Of course, the standings that I'm looking at are not the standings from after Laguna Seca. They're the standings from after Fuji. And at the moment, Alphazad and Pasti are separated by 1 point. But if the race finishes as is, Alphazad is going to firmly be in probably P1 of the championship, because X-Allen is only 7 points behind Alphazad. Well, look at him, he's all the way down in P10 right now. So it'll be interesting to see how many points he can gain. He must have had an incident. He was in P7 a minute ago. Talking about incidents, Fitzino in the Audi R8, unfortunately, well, he's had quite an incident there. Spun on the exit of one of the corners in Sector 1, ended up kind of beaching himself in the gravel, oversteering, and now he's doing an 80-point turn. That is absolutely heartbreaking there, mate. I hate to see it. But luckily, yeah, look at that, it's about 30 seconds behind the rest of the pack. It doesn't mean he's probably going to get pole, though, in the feature race, and as I say, Laguna Seca is the Monaco of GT7. If you thought that Brands Hatch was difficult to overtake on, you've seen nothing yet, because, oh, honestly, it's a dreadful track to overtake on. So difficult, especially through the corkscrew. You're going to get a lot of overtaking opportunities, as in a lot of opportunists are going to try and stick their nose down the inside of the corkscrew. You can guarantee it, but it always ends in disaster. You get no rear downforce around that corner because it's so downhill. Side by side in the final corner, Ross Storm, I believe, overtakes Pulte, or it may have been that Ross Storm defends his position. Alphazad leading by a comfortable margin now. He's popping off. And this is what Alphazad normally does. If we look at his track record, he won in the sprint in he won in the sprint around Saint-Croix, and then he won in the feature race in Fuji. So actually, he's got quite a mix of performances. Be interesting to see. But then again, even in Fuji when he won, he ended up winning from pole or pretty close to start grid. He got P13 in the sprint in Fuji. So we shall see how this goes. Now, I am going to try and make an effort of swapping the camera angle a little bit. I know that I'm basically addicted to chase cam because it's quite an easy cam to use in order to see as much action as possible, but it's a bit boring really, isn't it? So I'm going to try and switch to the I don't know, what do you call this, spectator view, let's call it that. Tap P3 right on the back there, I must admit, of Pasti down the corkscrew. And it seems like his Chevrolet Corvette's quite planted there through the corkscrew. All the time I talk about how light the rear of the Chevy is. It's really easy to oversteer this car, at least from my experience. But Tap, he's pretty under control right now in that USA Chevrolet Corvette. I remember somebody, it may have been Tap, I'm not sure who did it, but somebody made an American livery for the Chevy Corvette, and they're only allowed to use it around Daytona, which was I believe round 3 of the season. It was quite a while ago. And Laguna Seca, of course, penultimate race of the season. Next week, it's Mount Panorama, incredibly difficult track. I tell you what, Tier 1 have already been practicing like crazy. Iggy's just set a 2:21 on Mount Panorama, which sounds like a pretty quick lap time. Yeah, Tier 1, incredibly competitive, of course. They are next level. Tier 1, I'm nothing in Tier 1. Back at the grid, but here, the racing is quite close. Well, it's very close if you ignore Alphazad. We're not going to talk about him for a moment because he's actually popping off right now. He's leading the race by a good 7 or 8 seconds now. We'll see how well he does when he starts from the back of the grid in the Monaco of GT7, Laguna Seca. But, yeah, Mount Panorama next week, next Monday at 8 PM. I'm not going to be able to commentate, of course. I'm going back to university on Sunday, so I'm not going to have access to the PlayStation for the foreseeable future, and that means I'm not only going to have to hang up the microphone and no longer commentate, I'm not going to be racing at all, apart from maybe the summer, maybe the holiday events. Maybe I'll do a Le Mans 24 hours or something over Christmas. We're on board right now with X-Allen, the current leader of the World Championship. He's sitting in P7 right now. Of course, he started at the back of the grid. He got quali back. He's leading the championship by 5 points over Hurricane. And then it's only 2 points to Pasti 87 in P2. And then 1 extra point to Alphazad. So what is that? About 7 or 8 points separate the top 4 drivers. Now, of course, the man in P5 is M. Pulte. But there's maybe a 6 or 7 point gap between Pulte and Alphazad, but he's still got an opportunity, Pulte. Now, I don't think he's going to want me to mention it, but I am going to mention it. He kind of screwed it up a little bit in Fuji. I believe Pulte was P2 in the championship last week, and of course Hurricane absent. So he had an opportunity. He only needed to score 22 points, I believe, in order to take the championship lead. And I was saying that he was going to lead the championship the whole weekend as Ultra Tillon goes a little bit wide there. Through Sector 2, very unfortunate incident. So I was gassing on all weekend about how Polty was going to take the Leaders' Championship. He had a very, very difficult weekend. He was in an incident with Tap, I believe on the final lap of the sprint. He ended up going from P4 all the way down to like P10 or something. Ended up losing about 10 to 15 points. Well, in the end, he did get a very, very unfortunate weekend. He ended up finishing, hang on as I check the standings right now, P11 twice, P11 and P11 last week in Fuji, and that is really unfortunate for Polty. He ends up, well, actually losing championship positions from P2 down to P5. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore. That's in the past, and he's still got 2 weekends in order to possibly win the championship. Remember, 12-point gap between Polty in P5 and Alphazad in P1. 7-point gap between Alphazad in P1. Sorry, Alphazad in P4 and Alan, ex-Alan, in P1. But if the race finishes as is, I believe Alphazad will, it's pretty much a fact, Alphazad will take the lead of the championship. I think he'll only be leading though by about 2 points behind Pasty. Maybe 3 actually. You got a point for pole position, of course. In ALR you get a point for pole position in the sprint, but nothing for the feature race. And of course we don't do quali before the feature race, but you do get a point for fastest lap in the feature race. You don't get a point for fastest lap in the sprint. So Alphazad, if it ends like this, will probably be about 2 or 3 points in the lead of the championship behind Pasty in P2. And it seems like, to be honest, that is how it's going to finish. There's quite a significant gap between most of the drivers. Even Pasty has got, I don't know, maybe a 4 or 5 second advantage. Maybe not that. Maybe about a 2.5 second gap between Pasty and Tap right now. But Alphazad, he's just popping off. He's doing a bit of a Max Verstappen right now. He's leading by a good 5, 6, 7 seconds. But yeah, as I said, it's a bit of the Monaco of Gran Turismo here. Fitzino almost being lapped right there. Of course, Fitzino ended up getting in an incident maybe on lap 1 or lap 2 of the race. Very, very tricky. And unfortunately, I don't think he'd want me to show that on camera. It's a very unfortunate incident there. He ended up going a bit too deep through the corkscrew, and he's about to get lapped. And he's unfortunately gotten into another incident again, but we have seen this many times. My heart breaks whenever somebody gets into a series of tricky incidents and gets a really unlucky break in ALR. But I tell you what, it's happened before to the man representing the Austrians right now, Ultra Tillon. I remember the first race in Saint-Croix, he had a very unfortunate race. Well, 1 week later in Austria, he ended up coming... ended up coming P2 in Fuji. Sorry, did I just say Austria? Next week in Austria? No, last week was Fuji, Japan, and he ended up coming P2 in the future race. Very, very good drive there by Ultra Tillon. But what I was going to say is, going up and down the grid, there's a pretty large gap between most drivers, and a lot of drivers absent from Laguna Seca, I guess. Well, put it this way, it isn't a track that's very popular amongst the community. Not anything to do with the track itself, it's just a very difficult track. A lot of people don't like the fact that as soon as you run over the white line by a couple of inches, you've got dirt all over your tyre, and it means you've literally got no grip for half a sector. So, yeah, it's not a fan favourite, Laguna Seca. It's a really tricky track. It is like Monaco in the fact that it's an endurance race, it's a survival of the fittest. It's whoever doesn't go deep. And Tap almost did go deep there throughout the corkscrew. It's not that it matters, because like I said, we're looking at like 3 second gaps between most drivers here. What can I say? Monaco and Laguna Seca not producing the most entertaining race. I'm not going to say that a race is entertaining when it isn't. I will give a lot of entertainment when this race is, you know, high octane, neck and neck like it was in Fuji. I think it was a photo finish in Fuji in the end during the sprint. But unfortunately, Laguna Seca is not producing the same level of high octane action. Well, at least during the sprint. I've heard that the feature race is quite entertaining. Now I'm quickly going to check my notes from Laguna Seca, and it's 11 laps for the sprint race. At least that's what I experienced in Tier 1. So yeah, not long to go until Alphazad claims his win. I can almost guarantee it. In fact, I'm going to say it right now, Alphazad is going to win the sprint race. He's leading by a good 8 or 9 points. 8 or 9 points, 8 or 9 seconds. He's not leading in the championship at all. Of course, the championship leader, Alan, all the way down in P6 right now. Let's actually ride on board with Alan, because he's leading the championship. He's only 4 or 5 points ahead of Pasty, only 6 or 7 points ahead of Alphazad. And every single position is going to count massively in this championship. Absolutely. As he eyes up the gearbox of Ross Storm's Chevy Corvette, let's see if he's able to pop off the overtake. He brakes a lot deeper into the final corner there. Really early braking there by Ross Storm. He's right on the back of that Chevy. He tries to get a better exit. He ends up not getting a better exit. In fact, Ross Storm gets a better exit. And that's got nothing to do with the Chevy Corvette. I believe it's that Alan ended up tapping the back of Ross Storm on the exit of the final turn into turn 1 right there. He's trying to go around the outside and he tries to go for the switchback, but Ross Storm glues himself to the inside apex, and it means that X-Allen had one of 2 options. He could either hit the back of Ross Storm or brake and let him past, and he did. Ross Storm sticks himself in P5 for another lap, most likely. Final lap of the race right now, ladies and gents. And we're on board with X-Allen because he is currently in the lead of the championship, and the man who is in P4, probably thinking P4, that don't mean nothing. Oh, Alan almost hits the back of Ross Storm. In fact, he does. He goes for a push to pass. Ladies and gentlemen, that will most likely be looked at the stewards. And X-Allen ended up actually getting a quali ban last race. That's why he started at the back of the grid in P13 at the start of this sprint race, round 7, Laguna Seca. Last week in Fuji, Japan, he ended up getting a quali ban. He's been in so many incidents. I can almost guarantee that Ross Storm has reported that push to pass there by Alan. It was unfortunate. It was right on the back of the Chevy Corvette of Ross Storm. And Ross Storm broke just a little bit earlier than the Lexus RCF of Ian was expecting. Of course, Ian and Alan, the same person. It's a long story. But yeah, a bit of a push to pass there. Very unlucky. Definitely not malicious, but definitely an incident. Alphazad claims P1. He ends up winning the sprint race from pole position. Domination of a performance. He ends up winning by about 5 seconds. Pasty 87, the man who's 1 point ahead of him in the championship, ends up finishing P2. So those 2 drivers have just swapped positions, and I reckon they're actually sitting P1 and P2 in the championship right now. Tap, P3, pretty good effort there. Regnix, P4, Ross Storm, P5. And he does end up getting the position. Alan does actually give Ross Storm the position. That is a very, very good sportsmanship there by X-Allen. It's not going to go to the stewards, because Ross Storm gets his P5 back, and Alan in P6. Bolty P7. Olivier P8. Gin Tonics got very unlucky, got in a mad incident at the start there between him and Tap, and Autotillon, of course. He's in P9, Autotillon P10, Montava P11, and Fitzino struggling quite significantly there in the Audi R8. In fact, we're actually going to leave the lobby right now, and I'm going to try and swap to the sprint. My apologies. I'm going to try and swap to the feature race as quickly as possible in order to try and keep the momentum of the commentary. Here we go, feature race. We're not going to like it. We ain't seen it yet. We'll see how good the feature race is before we start liking things. So, the feature, I've heard that lap 3 there's a bit of an incident in the feature race, especially towards the back of the grid. So I'll be sure, I have remembered to do it, I will be spectating the back of the grid during lap 3. I mean, I hope that there's a bit of drama during the first few laps of Laguna Seca, because it only takes 4 or 5 laps until the whole grid spreads out. And of course, we've got a 29 lap feature race. Of course, it's actually a 40-minute feature. The way that ALR works is we do a 10-minute quali, followed by a 15-minute sprint. That's what you guys just saw. Then we reverse the grids from the sprint, and we put everybody back on track for a 40-minute feature. But of course, this race actually happened live on Monday. I'm only commentating it now on Friday. It's been a very busy week. And I, of course, have also raced in Tier 1, and I've calculated how many laps there are going to be, and there have been 29 laps in the feature. So we're not going to talk about time, we're going to talk about laps, because time, it gets a bit confusing. Replay options will bang on the heads-up display, and I believe, I don't know who to spectate at the start here, ladies and gents. I'm going to rock with the chase cam, I don't want to miss anything. let's be on board with Gin Tonic, see if Auto Attillon can go for a move down into turn 1, and then I'm going to try and swing it right back to Alpha Zad at the back of the grid to try and catch any info. Auto Attillon goes for the move around the outside of Montava. It doesn't look like he's going to get it. Nobody, in fact, Polty ends up overtaking O'Leary J for P4, and no wheels on the gravel for anybody, but Auto Attillon is now down the inside of Montava. He's desperate to get that position. Wheel spin there, very heavy car, the Ford Mustang, and he ends up losing P2 for the foreseeable future. I reckon it's going to take a while for anybody to make an overtake. It takes about sector 3, maybe you'll see an overtake or 2. X Allen now in P6, of course, finished about P6 or P7 in the future race. Montava gets a bit of dirt on his wheel, and I believe so does Polty or Gin Tonics. I don't know, I just saw a lot of dust, and I'd seen that Gin Tonics is still in P3. We'll see if Polty is going to go for a move down the inside of the corkscrew, and he ends up not making a move at all. Gin Tonic still firmly in P3. Whoa, hang on, I say that, he's extremely squirrely through the corkscrew. I don't know what happened. I believe he caught 2 wheels on the inside gravel. And what is going on here? Polty on the back of Gin Tonic ends up getting loads of oversteer, ends up cutting the corner and getting a half-second time penalty. That's heartbreak. I thought he was going to get a time penalty after that. Look how slow the Ford Mustang is through the final corner. Montava really wrestling it. It's an awful car after the update, which is a shame. It's taken a bit of a fall from grace. Used to be the fastest car in the game. But I tell you what, the Renault RS01 used to be the worst car in the game by a mile, and now it's probably the best. But who cares about cars that are banned this season, because nobody's using it, and I'd be surprised if nobody's discovered that it's OP. It's probably banned. X Allen still in P6. Like I say, finished middle of the pack during the sprint, my apologies. And he's now pretty much in the same position as he was. I'm not sure if he's made any overtakes at all. Pretty sure he started P6 in the feature. And he hasn't been able to gain any positions there. Like I say, Laguna Seca is the Monaco City of GT7. Nobody wants to make an overtake on this track because of the grass, because of the gravel, my apologies. Montava ends up getting in a bit of an incident there, losing a lot of time. He's probably gotten all 4 wheels on the gravel. Like I was going to say, Laguna Seca, Monaco of GT7. Nobody wants to try and make an overtake here because the gravel, the sand, the dirt, is basically like a brick wall. As soon as you hit it, you slow right down to 1 mile an hour. Yeah, it's really, really tough. Auto Attillon, to change the subject, he's doing what Alpha Zad just did 5 minutes ago. And he's also doing what he did in Fuji last week. I think he's got a bit of a meta here. Auto Attillon, he struggles in quali, gets a decent position, second to last. He was second to last. He started second to last week in Fuji. And he poles it. Well, basically, he starts from the front of the grid for the feature race. And he just ends up getting a commandeering lead. And he ends up basically, well, getting a podium. Let's see if Auto Attillon can do what he did last week in Fuji and get another podium. So, I haven't followed the guys at the back of the grid at all. Which is a shame. Because I've heard that there's a bit of an incident. Gin Tonics ends up spinning in P4. Not sure if that's the incident that I've been told to look out for, but it seems pretty straightforward incident. I believe it was an incident with somebody like O'Leary J. Could be wrong, but he was battling with Polty. My apologies, he was battling with Polty for quite a long time now. He's probably crashed into the old 911 user from Switzerland. Let's see this incident, this lap 3 incident everyone's talking about. Pasty 87 eyeing up the rear bumper of Regnick's. Oh, hang on, this is a bit of an incident. Pasty ends up spinning quite significantly there on the entry into corkscrew. He ends up slowing down to about 1 mile an hour. And he's so squirrely right now. He's lit up his rears and he's desperately trying to claw back his positions. Of course, Pasty is in a championship fight. He's currently, I would imagine, P2 in the championship. He's in P1. You're probably thinking, well, it's a guy who's only a couple of positions ahead of him, Alpha Zad. He has seized P1 of the championship after a pretty dominating performance that you guys just saw 5 minutes ago during the sprint race. Yeah, pretty good race there. 5 minutes ago during the sprint, Alpha Zad, he goes down the inside of Tap, kind of pushes him wide a little bit. You get so much understeer through that corner from experience. And he's gotten P6, but not without a bit of consequence. I would not be surprised at all if Tap Shooter tries to report an Alpha Zad for that. Bit of a tricky incident. Ross Thorpe, P5. X-Allen somehow has picked up a 5-second time penalty. That's odd, because I've found it pretty difficult to get time penalties in Laguna Seca, because normally if you end up running wide, you end up hitting the dirt and slowing down enough for the game to go, let's not give him a penalty. The people in the comments, I like to see it, talking about how the incident, the move between Alphazad and Tap, not reported. Interesting. People are saying it's a fair move. It probably was, to be fair. But you know me, I like to hype things up a little bit, especially when everybody's 30 seconds behind one another. Maybe that was a little bit of an unfair assumption. Ross Thorpe around the outside of X-Allen right there. Ross Thorpe, of course, we haven't talked about Ross Thorpe's position in the championship, as he tries to hang it around the outside of turn 1 and 2 of P1. But unfortunately, of turn 1, my apologies, he ends up not being able to secure the position and ends up coming P4. There we go, it turns out Tap is actually the one in the comments. I thought it was Tap, you know, because he's got the same logo. No, he hasn't got the same. Right, it doesn't really matter what profile picture Tap uses. He just kind of emanated Tap shooter vibes. And on that bombshell, you know, it's just a lucky guess. Water Attillon. He's doing a bit of an Alphazad right now. He's absolutely popping off. That's what he's doing. He's leading the race by, well, I've got to say, probably about 5 seconds now in front of Poulty. Yeah, he is. Look at the gap between those two timing screens. M. Poulty in P2, of course. This is going to be the first really good performance from Poulty in quite a significant amount of time. Of course, I'm going to mention it again. He got a very unlucky weekend last week in Fuji, and he ended up scoring barely any points at all. Of course, Poulty was in P2 of the championship, most likely to secure P1. Of course, the driver who was in P1, Hurricane, he's absent. Last week for Fuji, he's on holiday still in Laguna Seca, and it's meant that, well, he's lost a massive amount of points. Well, he was still in P2 as far as last week, but after this race I reckon he'll probably drop down to P5. He of course was also representing Team Mazda RX Vision, as we see Alphazad struggling a little bit through the gravel on the exits of Sector 1. Yeah, so it turns out that the RX Vision is a pretty strong car, in Tier 3 at least. In Tier 1, a few drivers are... well, nobody's actually using it in Tier 1, I don't know what I'm talking about. I've heard in the chat, in the general Gran Turismo chat, quite a few drivers, I've got mixed feelings about the RX. A lot of people are kind of complaining about it. But if we're only going off Tier 3, the two drivers who were favourite to win the championship, Alphazad currently leading the championship after the sprint race that we literally just did 5 minutes ago. And before then, Hurricane, his teammate, also in the RX, who's absent of course, he was popping off. Look at that. He basically got a top 5 finish in every race of the season. Maybe one P12 and P7, but apart from that, yeah, he was really dominating. And he was leading by about 22 points, you know, going into Fuji. I've just remembered that I'm supposed to be putting my microphone quite far away from my face. I'm also getting all blocked up, so I'm going to start sounding like an entirely different person indeed. But hopefully that mic wasn't too loud then. Hopefully it didn't start popping, cutting out. I need to get a pop filter. That would probably help. Anyway, what I was going to check is Ross Thorpe's position in the standings. He's currently in P10, actually. He's had a few pretty unlucky performances during the start of the season, but he's gotten some pretty good top 5 finishes, actually, towards the second half. Right now, of course, whilst we wait for some action to happen, oh, my apologies, I say that Alphazad got a pretty good exit from that lovely, really quick left-hand kink into the corkscrew. Doesn't look like he's actually able to make a move though, on Ross Thorpe. Yeah, so a quick summary of the championship. As of last week's race in Fuji, Ross Thorpe is in P10, Tap Shooter in P9, which surprises me because Tap has been a pretty successful driver as long as I've tell you. Major XTC, who is currently not racing, I believe, so far. P8. Vidvir. Well, actually, I remember commentating Vidvir quite a lot in both Songkhla and in Fuji last week. Pretty good driver with a pretty decent set of results. He's in P7, Regnick's P6, and then of course the top 5 has since been updated. My predictions are that since the sprint race, I believe the leader of the championship, because of course the top 5 was separated by like 5 points, you know, so let's just, you know, wipe the slate clean and say that they're basically all on equal points. Well, the leader of the winner of the race in the sprint, Alpha Zad, is most likely leading the championship by 1 point over Pasti in P8 currently, but he's in P2 in the championship overall, I would imagine. P3 of the championship is probably not Hurricane anymore. I would say it's probably El Ian. Now, of course, he was leading the championship before the sprint race. He got a tricky sprint race, but because of that, he ended up starting towards the front of the grid for the feature, and that has allowed him to just secure P2 from Pulte, one of the easiest overtakes I've ever seen. Pulte, of course, got very unlucky, ran very deep into turn 1, and now X-Allen in P2. And if the race finishes like this, it's going to be very close between Allen and Alpha Zad. I would estimate that Alpha Zad is maybe 5 points ahead of Allen in the championship. Of course, Alpha Zad P1, Pasti P2, a couple points behind, and then a couple points behind him would be X-Allen. But if X-Allen finishes P2 and Alpha Zad P6, then I would imagine Allen's going to re-secure the lead of the championship. And then, well, we've only got one more race to go, boys. Mount Panorama, what a difficult circuit to have as the final round. That Sector 2, you know, you run wide by 1 inch and you're demolished. You know, I call Laguna Seca the Monaco of GT7, but maybe it's actually Mount Panorama, the closest thing to a street race you'll ever see in ALR. When are we going to get Tokyo Expressway back on ALR? Come on, I mustn't be the only person begging for a bit of Tokyo. Best track in the game. Maybe that's a bit far. Maybe a bit of a hot take, as the cool kids say. Alpha Zad, right on the back there of Rosson. And he's going to try and go for a move around the outside of turn 1. I'm pretty sure this is the only move we've seen all weekend outside of turn 1. Because, of course, everybody glues themselves to the inside of turn 1. But, of course, it's a little bit tricky, maybe a little bit low grip around the outside of turn 1 and 2. Because, once again, Alpha Zad has not been able to make an overtake around the outside of turn 1. He's still stuck behind Russell. Let's see if there'll be a bit of teammate camaraderie between Rossom and Tab. I don't think we've seen much tag team teammate action go on in Tier 3 so far. Of course, you guys ain't seen Tier 1. Me and Lars T are an inseparable couple. He's normally at the back of the grid. He's normally crashed by the time we get to the feature race. And what he normally does is he tries and slows everyone down in order to give his teammate, Sick Boy, yours truly, a couple positions. Inseparable partnership, but unfortunately we will be separated. This was our last race together, Laguna Seca Tier 1. But anyway, you can tell that this race is, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit dry. There's not a lot of action going on, and that's why I'm kind of rambling a little bit. It'll only be 5 minutes until I say something that I regret for the rest of my life, so maybe, as soon as it gets to 20 minutes, that will be just before I say my controversial thing. I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but it always happens. I'll make sure to switch my mic off and we'll do our weekly engine sound compilation. Alpha Zad, he's tried to go for another move around the outside of Rosson, but all that ended up leading to was him losing the position to Tab, I would imagine. I don't know what happened there, but he's lost a position. And now he's going to try and send it down the inside of this corner here. Don't know what it's called. Down the inside of Tap Sheet when he does gain his P6 again, but he's lost quite a bit of time to Rosson. Yeah, I actually saw a lot of drivers use this corner right here. No, not this corner right here. That corner right there that Gin Tonics is going round in P12. In Tier 1 at least, a lot of drivers were trying to launch overtakes down that corner. Interesting little tidbit. In fact, I don't know whether it's that Alpha Zad was slow or whether Ross Thorne was popping off, because, ladies and gentlemen, he's just gained quite a few seconds actually on O'Leary J. He's really setting in consistent lap times right now. Another 23.7, and it's meant that he's caught all the way up to O'Leary J in P4. Let's see whether he's able to make the move. Oh no, that's maybe not the smartest move there by Ross Thorne. It didn't look like he had the move off. You pretty much have to be sight. Oh, very tricky incident there with Ross Thorne, as he, unfortunately, and this is why nobody likes Laguna Seca, if it ain't the dirt on the outside, it's those stupid sausage curbs, and he hits it again. It's those stupid sausage curbs on the inside of every corner. Ross Thorne takes a little bit too much curb on the inside. One of the corners in Sector 1, and he hurls his car into the air, loses about 2.5 to 3 seconds, and finally loses the position to Alpha Zad. If you're an Alpha Zad fan, then you're going to be absolutely cheering right now. I can hear you all from Germany. Maybe that's the thing that gets me cancelled. Not really. I don't know why Right, anyway, Alpha Zad fans, you're gonna be cheering the man from Germany. He's got a big following, I would imagine, and he's finally gained the position. He's finally got P5, and he's finally overtaken Ross Thorne. Of course, all the Brits who are devoted Ross Thorne fans, like me, I'm a bit of a Ross Thorne fan. I'm actually crying right now. I know you can't see it, but it's really sad. I tell you who my favourite driver is, actually, the wild card. I think Auto Attila. There's something about him, you know. He's, first of all, I don't know what he's done to his front right. It'll be interesting to see if he can let me know, because the SLS AMG hasn't had that terrible, because I would have remembered it if the tyre wear was double that of the AMG. Yeah, so that's the SLS AMG. If it was always double the tyre wear of the AMG 2018, then I would have noted it, but I don't know how he's managed it. But Auto Attila has ended up getting absolutely ridiculous tyre wear, and he's almost got puncture. In fact, I'm surprised he's able to keep it on the road, and he's staying out for another lap. Not the most intelligent move there by Auto Attila, I must admit, and at the moment he's got everything to lose. He's in P1 of the race by, well, I would say quite a significant margin. He's on the podium by quite a significant margin, but X-Allen, he's putting in the lap times right now, sub 123s for, well, quite a few of his laps have been sub 23s. He's currently got the fastest lap. Of course, the fastest lap worth a point in the feature, but not in the sprint. So he's got an opportunity now to secure himself another point. Yeah, but Auto Attila, I don't know why he's decided to stay out for another lap right there. He's most likely going to get punctured this lap, and he's going to suffer like crazy throughout Sector 3, which is all left-hand corners. Of course, if the outside wheel gets a puncture, then you get understeer. If it's the inside wheel, you get oversteer. Yeah, he's definitely got a puncture. Look at him. He's all the way down into like 70 miles an hour around that corner. Absolutely missed the apex. And I'm going to be on board with X-Allen right now, because I'm sure he's going to be gaining by a significant margin. Look, he's already gained another quarter of a second, and especially through the corkscrew. Yeah, look at that. He's struggling so much with understeer. X-Allen is catching up by a significant margin. It looks like Auto Attila has thrown away his lead. Please pit this lap in the SLS AMG. He's got to, surely. And he's staying out for another lap, ladies and gentlemen. Auto Attila, these are scenes right now, and I was about to say, I wonder whether the game is just glitched and he doesn't really have a puncture, but then he just loses another second to X-Allen through the final corner. I'm not sure what Auto Attila is doing right now. I was about to say he's my favourite driver. I think he is my favourite driver, popping at P2 in Fuji, but he has made one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in ALR history. Polty is pitting. I mean, Alpha Zad is pitting off the mediums, and look, he's still got 50% tyre wear. Auto Attillon, he's nursing a puncture right now, and he's been doing so for the last 2.5 laps, and he's still out on those tyres. What has he got against the pit lane? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's because he's suffering from crazy tyre wear, so he's decided to drag out the mediums so that he can go on softs. Because if mediums don't last bloody 20 minutes, then softs aren't. We're only halfway. Look in the bottom left-hand corner. We're only halfway through this race. Lap 15 out of, I would imagine, 29. So how is he going to go on softs for 15 laps? That's not possible, surely. Oh my days, I don't know what's going to happen. I believe he's going to have to either two-stop or go on hards or nurse a puncture for about, I don't know, about 10 minutes. That's about 8 laps. I don't know what's going to happen here, ladies and gentlemen, but it means that Auto Attillon has lost mega amounts of time. But tell you who else has lost mega amounts of time? Alan, who does decide to stay out for an extra lap, of course. He wants to, well, he's thinking, I don't want to be stuck behind Auto Attillon again. Of course, Auto Attillon, I'm allowed to say that because he's my favourite driver. But yeah, he did cost Alan a whole lot of time, and I'm sure that Alan thought exactly that. He does not want to be stuck behind Auto Attillon. Of course, it's no fault of the Austrian driver at all. He got a puncture so quick in the SLS AMG, and I can't wait to find out if he's going to go on hards or softs. I tell you, if he goes on softs, he's either going to be nursing a puncture for about 10 minutes, or he's going to have to two-stop. A lot of drivers now in the pit lane. O'Leary J yet to pit and Alan yet to pit, but apart from that, it means that Pulte, he's actually setting a pretty good performance right now. He's come out the final corner. Let's see whether he's able to overtake Auto Attillon, and by extension, he might actually be able to overtake Alan as Auto Attillon comes out of the pitch right now on the brand new set of softs. Yeah, so he's either going to be nursing a puncture or two-stop. We'll see what happens with Auto Attillon, but Pulte, okay, maybe it is about 5 or maybe 6 or 7 seconds between Auto Attillon and Pulte, but I tell you what, he would have caught a significant margin up to Alan. That has really slowed Alan down a lot. Let's see if he pits. He decides to. Very interesting. Of course, flat into the pit lane. You don't have to brake and go around that corner, which makes it very easy for the drivers, but it also means that drivers can't gain, 2-3 seconds. I remember in, I believe it's like Brands Hatch, you can gain like a second just by taking the pit lane entry perfectly. And the best one, my favourite one, is Circuit de la Sarthe, the Le Mans track. You can gain like 2 seconds by taking it properly. Enough about that. I was going to talk about how good that Le Mans Spec Series race was. Literally my favourite race in ALR history. But unfortunately the admins... Look, I just want a Le Mans Series, okay? Maybe I'm not asking. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Alan. I would imagine the probable leader of this race. I said that Pulte might overtake him, but in reality, he's actually overtaken Auto Attillon, so there's a massive gap between Pulte and Alan, and it's meant that Alan will most likely steam off ahead with the win, most likely, not because Auto Attillon can't keep up, but because Auto Attillon has got terrible tyre wear. He's been cursed with terrible tyre wear this weekend, which is odd because I've never noticed it before in the SLS. I probably have, and I've probably mentioned it, but yeah, Auto Attillon is either going to be nursing a puncture or he's going to have to two-stop, which is a shame because I thought it was almost guaranteed that he would get a podium. Well, we're past the 20-minute mark, and not much is going on track. So you know what that means? I'm going to do my weekly special when I turn the mic off, I bang it in spectator mode, and we listen to the beautiful engine sounds that the developers of Polyphony Digital have spent hours conjuring up for your auditory pleasure. But of course you can't hear the engine noises because you've got my gob, rabbiting on about tact over these races. So maybe I'll just shut up for the next 5 minutes and you can listen to the engine sounds of GT7. Right, ladies and gents, I'm back. Of course, if you're just tuning in now, then you just missed my absence for the last 3 minutes whilst I rest my beautiful voice, annoying voice maybe. And, well, we just followed the drivers for a moment, and the only thing that we missed, Alphazad overtaking Ross Thorne for P4. Alphazad, of course, leading the championship after the sprint, and he's only 1 point ahead of Pulte. My apologies. That would be surprising. He's 1 point ahead of Pasti, the driver in the Toyota VGT. But Pasti, of course, all the way down in P9. Unfortunately, this close to grasping the championship lead. He's only 1 point away from leading the championship for the first time all season, I'm pretty sure. Unfortunately, Pasti has had an unlucky race, a feature race of Laguna Seca. He's down in P9 and, well, I can't wait to find out what happens to the standings with Pasti in P9. It might mean that he drops all the way down into maybe P3, maybe P4. Because Pulte, who is in P5, of course he's definitely going to gain P4 because Hurricane's absent again. Well, he might end up overtaking Pasti, that's all I'm saying. Probably maybe 10 points separating the two drivers. Maybe it'll be a close one, maybe Pulte will be 1 or 2 points behind, but it'll definitely be in a realistic scenario to actually overtake Pasti on the final race of the season next week in Mount Panorama and seize P3 in the championship. Lap 22, go to 5th to 8th place cars. Interesting tip there by Vidveer. And guess who's in 8th place? Vidveer himself. I wonder if there's going to be an incident on lap 22. By the way, that's a very good livery there. I didn't realise that Lexus was rocking this US livery. That is probably the most patriotic livery I've seen, especially, are they donuts on the front fender? Amazing. There's a highlight coming up at the end of lap 22. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Of course, the two drivers who posted that in the comments are Vidveer and Tap themselves. So I don't know how this can happen because at the moment, start of lap 21, the drivers between P5 and P8, they're separated by quite a margin. So how do they all end up getting in an incident in the next lap? I'm at the edge of my seat right now. I can't wait to find out. It's going to be very interesting indeed. But, yeah, Alan, that's what I was going to say. Alan, is he now leading the championship? He was leading the championship before the sprint, then the sprint happened, and then he basically finished about P6. So I would imagine he was in P3 of the championship, maybe 5 or 6 points behind Alphazad and Pasti. Has he got enough points to overtake Alphazad in the championship? I don't know. Just as I say that Pulte, I believe he was in P3 and he had a really good chance to gain a significant amount of points over Pasti and beat Pasti to P3 the championship. Well, he's lost a couple of positions right now, ladies and gents. He's all the way down into P5, and maybe this is what causes the highlight. Hang on a minute, it is all kicking off. It is all kicking off. Beginning of lap 22. Vidveer in P8, Tap P7. Basically, Pulte's had an incident, and it means that O'Leary J, so he's lost 2 positions, down to P3, now in P5, and P6, right behind him, O'Leary J into turn 1. He's going to try and go for a move, but he isn't able to hang it around the outside, so he's stuck behind Pulte. Pulte kicks up more dust on the outside of turn 2, into that right-hander turn 3, and does he run wide? No, he doesn't. Let's see, Vidveer, right on the exit of Tap, he ends up running wide, and ends up kicking up a bit of dirt, and that's going to give him massive understeer for turn 4, which has just ended up extending out the gap. Now, into this little left-hander, Pulte on the inside, O'Leary J on the outside. They somehow hang it round, and they end up not making contact. O'Leary J does overtake Pulte throughout sector 1, but now Pulte's right on his rear, heading into the corkscrew, but the gap's growing quite a bit between the drivers. Right, let's see here. Tap, he brakes late. Oh, Pulte, is he able to make the move? No, he isn't, but they are neck and neck right now. They're literally front bumper to rear bumper. I think a couple of feet separate P5, 6 and 7. And both drivers have gone wide. O'Leary J goes wide, and so does Polty. Hang on a minute, Tap is now right on the rear of the 3 or 4 drivers at the beginning of lap 23 are side by side, and they're going for a 4 wide into the final turn, and it ends up being Vivir who gains 2 positions. Tap gains 2 positions, but Vivir ends up getting oversteer, and Polty and Vivir are now side by side. O'Leary J and Tap are now side by side. Tap ends up gaining all 3 positions and is now in P5. And now heading into turn 1 of lap 23, we've got Vivir on the inside, and he's going to brake later than O'Leary J and Polty, and he ends up trying to make the position, but he ends up hitting Tap, and Tap oversteers a little bit, but it's okay. Tap maintains the P5, and Vivir ends up overtaking both drivers. Oh, hang on, down the inside goes O'Leary J just a bit. He tries to squeeze his bumper in there, but it's not enough. Vivir ends up maintaining his position, but hang on, Polty out of nowhere ends up going down the inside of turn 4, and that was close right there. Turn 4 is never a place where you want to be. Sticking a wheel down the inside. I don't know how Polty ended up not getting crazy understeer. Might always get understeer around that corner. Man, that was actually a bit of entertainment, to be fair. The most of a pulse raising moment in this otherwise quite boring race, I must say. Well, it's just been a slow race maybe, but that was a very good moment indeed. Of course, as a summary, Tap ends up gaining the most positions out of everyone. He goes from P7 up to P5, and Vivir, well, hang on a minute, if Vivir's right on the back of Tap right now, he might make an overtake. He might end up gaining the most positions out of all. He was in P8 at the start of lap 22. Of course, they went 3 wide into the final turn, and look at that, he does the old switchback on Tap. He ends up getting a better exit, and I believe the Lexus RCF has better straight line speed as well. And look at that, easy move on Tap. He's got the inside into turn 1. He even brakes later, and look at that, Tap. He basically conceded that position there, broke very late into very early, my apologies, into turn 1. And yeah, to be honest, smart move there by Tap to secede the position, but maybe he let Vivir by a little bit too safely, because now Polty is right on the back of him. Unfortunately, Polty got a little bit of oversteer, and it's meant that he's not able to make a move on Tap. But hang on a minute, there might still be a bit of a battle ensuing here between Polty and Tap, heading through Sector 2. Now Tap gets a far better exit from that little left-hand kink, heading into the corkscrew, and no overtake opportunities. So just as a quick recap, what happened there on lap 22 is Polty ends up making a mistake, loses quite a few positions. O'Leary J ends up overtaking Polty. O'Leary J was in P5 for maybe half a lap, and then all the drivers bunch up, and they end up going 3 wide through this corner right here only a couple laps ago, and it ends up being Vivir who, throughout maybe a lap and a half, overtakes all 3 drivers, and unfortunately O'Leary J ends up losing positions to all 3 drivers. Pasty still in P9, Polty P7 though. Let's see if he can make a move. In fact, no, the only move that's happening is Tap is going to try and go around the outside of Vivir, and he's not going to be able to make it land. But here's what's interesting. They are about to lap Fitzino. Fitzino, great driver, but he's unfortunately had a very difficult weekend in the Audi R8. Props to him though for not giving up. He's still in the lobby. You wouldn't see that in Tier 1, put it that way. And he's not rage quit. But he is about to be approached by Vivir and the rest of this P5 train. As O'Leary J looked like he was about to make a move there, not Polty, but very conservative driving, generally across the board. There we go. Fitzino lets through all drivers, very good there. I did see the blue flags being waved by the marshals. Yeah, very, very safe and sportsmanlike driving there by Fitzino. Now, quickly going up to the front of the grid, X Allen is leading by, I would say, about 10 seconds. In fact, he is leading by 10 seconds. Absolute domination of a performance. Alpha Zad having quite a quiet race himself, actually, in P2. Quite a significant gap between him and Ross Storm. Look at that, probably about 4 or 5 seconds between Alpha Zad and Ross Storm. And Ortratillon in P4. Now, I didn't realise that Alpha Zad was in P2. Hang on a minute, he's obviously the current leader of the championship after the sprint race. He's leading by 1 point over Pasty. And look, Pasty's all the way down in P9. And he may even be overtaken by Polty. So, Alpha Zad is, well, he's in P2 of the championship. This is insane. He's currently in P2 of the championship. And, sorry, P1 in the championship. And yeah, I had no idea that he was going to win. Sorry, I've just been distracted by that. Vidvir says, same man in the comments. What do you mean? Are there two drivers that I keep on saying are different drivers, but they're actually the same driver? Because if so, then that is a major blunder by Sick Boy, your weekly commentator. Right. Let's see what the tyres are looking like. We've obviously only got 3 laps to go, and as predicted, Ultratilon is really suffering with the tyre wear in that SLS, and it's already got a puncture with 3 laps to go, lap 27, 8 and 9, and let's see if he can hold on to that P4. But yeah, Alphazad, he's leading the championship by 1 point over Pasti, and he's going to win this race. So most likely, my apologies, and he's going to come P2 in this race. So that's going to be a massive points haul against Pasti, meaning I believe he's going to be first. Then I believe second will be Alan, because Alan's was leading the championship. He's maybe 5 or 6 points behind Alphazad as of the time of this race. As soon as he wins this race, he's going to be 2 or 3 points behind Alphazad in P2. So it'll be Alphazad P1, Alan P2 by about 3 points. And then I think Polti and Pasti will be pretty close, actually. I think it will be Pasti P3, but he's going to be about 10 points behind Alan. And then it will be Polti P4, maybe about 2 points behind Pasti. But Polti's just lost another position, this time to O'Leary J, and he's made a massive mistake, Polti. He actually has. He's gone on the gravel, lost all of his grip, gone very deep through the corkscrew, and I thought that was going to be more dangerous than it was. He's most likely going to remain in P8 for the rest of this race, but for a moment I thought he was going to get overtaken by Pasti. It looks more likely now that Pasti will be P3 in the championship and Polti will be P4 by probably a gap of about 10, 11, 12 points, maybe more, maybe 15. It's hard to guess. Of course, in a very short moment, this race will be over and we'll be able to see what the championship standings are, and I will let everybody know. But my prediction is Alphazad P1, Alan P2, 2 points behind, and then Pasti P3, and then Polti P4. But I tell you what, the reason why I'm following this championship so closely is even though the moment-to-moment racing around Laguna Seca this weekend might have been a little bit dry, the championship overall has been one of the closest championships I've ever seen in league racing, okay? And I've been doing commentaries and races for F1 for a long time, and I've been doing it for GT for, well, ever since launch a year and a half ago. But I've never seen a championship like this one, I tell you. It is, well, it's neck and neck, put it that way. Only, well, coming into this race, 5 points separating the top 4 drivers, and now I believe it's going to be 2 points separating the top 2 drivers. And this is going to be an amazing showdown. X-Alan v Alphazad. Of course, Alphazad normally better in quali, but X-Alan, he's put in a bloody good performance this weekend. So he started at the back of the grid. He got a quali ban before this race. He was a bit naughty through Fuji. Got a quali ban, and then started at the back of the grid. He somehow managed a P6, I believe, in the sprint, and he's managed to well, start approximately P6 or P7 in the feature, and well, managed to crawl his way back up to P1. I say crawl in like a negative way. No, he's managed to dominate his way in P1. Look, he's leading by 10 to 15 seconds over the man in P2, Alphazad. That Lexus is a really good car, but the Mazda, there's something about the Mazda RX Vision. It's one of my favourites. Let's go into the cinematic cam for the final few corners. As I thought, only 29 laps in this feature. As he crosses the final corner, X-Alan to possibly take the lead of the championship ends up finishing the feature race in P1 with the fastest lap, a 121.8. Very, very nice drive there by X-Alan, and Alphazad in P2. Massive gap between the two drivers. Now, of course, I say that Alphazad is winning the race by, well, kind of by merit, really, because we haven't done the check on Ultratilon. Oh, hang on a minute. Ultra Tillon got a half-second time penalty. He was in P4. He was pretty much guaranteed P4, and now he's been given a half-a-second time penalty, and he's battling with Tap along the line, and Tap ends up gaining P5 right at the end there, and P4 for Vidvir. Man, and unfortunately it always does this. It boots you out of the race as soon as the drivers cross the line. So hang on a minute, bit of a rewind there. In fact, I might actually replay that end. Bit of an instant replay. So we've had a battle for P5 in the race for pretty much the whole race, of course. That's what caused that massive four-a-side battle towards the end. And right at the end there, we've got, of course... So let's rewind it just a little bit. Ultra Tillon has got a puncture, as predicted. And he was in P3 for a long time. And Ross Storm overtook him quite a while ago. Then he ended up in P4, nursing a puncture. He's got so little grip that he ends up going over the white line and picking up a half-second time penalty. His pulse must be pretty raised right now. Heart rate, 180 BPM, I would imagine. He's absolutely petrified. He's got a puncture. He's got 3 wheels on his wagon. Okay, on his SLS AMG. And he's got Vidvir right behind him, using that USA livery. Of course, Vidvir, mega performance, it must be said. Ended up overtaking, 4 drivers in a lap or something. Ended up going from P8 to P5. Well, he ends up popping the P4 in the end there. Because going into corkscrew right now, to begin Sector 3, Vidvir is right on the back of Ultra Tillon. And, of course, Ultra Tillon's got a half-second time penalty. Vidvir's wasting no time at all. He dives down the inside, but he ends up not gaining the position. My apologies. So he's going to wait until the final corner. Then Vidvir goes for the switchback, I would imagine. He's around the outside of Ultra Tillon. No, he just straight up goes around the outside of the final corner. And Ultra Tillon has to serve that half-second time penalty. And it means that Tap ends up pipping Ultra Tillon on the line. Very unfortunate race. Very unfortunate end there for Ultra Tillon. Put in a very good effort. And I was just about to pause it, but it doesn't matter. Our final standings for this race were Alan P1, AlphaZab P2, Ross Storm P3, Vidvir P4, Tap P5, Ultra Tillon P6, Olivia P7, I believe that's Polty P8, I believe that's Pasty P9, Regnix P10, and unfortunately we can't see the rest. There we can. Chintonics, and then M. Monteva, I'm trying to remember his name, M. Monteva, and then Vitsino. Very unlucky race there by Vitsino. Right, unfortunately, last twice in a row there in the Audi R8. I believe because he didn't even finish the sprint. I believe he didn't begin the feature at the front of the grid. Anyway, I'm just quickly going to check the standings, of course, because the benefit of doing these races a few days later is that the provisional standings, these are pre-stewards, I believe. Oh, in fact, no, it isn't pre-stewards. I believe there was no... let me quickly check whether there were any Tier 3 submissions this weekend. Yeah, so there were a few submissions, actually. Pasty reports AlphaZad in the sprint, so it'll be interesting to see if there's any repercussions for AlphaZad. It could cost him a place. And then Ian reports Ross Storm. And, yeah, a bit of drama between... Well, not really drama. That's it, basically. A couple reports. As we look at the standings, these are pre-steward standings, so AlphaZad could get a penalty, but I highly doubt that it'll affect his position. AlphaZad takes the lead by a solid 14 points over L. Ian. Don't know what I was saying, 2 points between the two drivers. AlphaZad, he's got a commanding lead over L. Ian. 14 points ahead, 176 points in total. He's in P1. Alan, P2, 14 points behind. Only 4 points behind him. It's Pasty 87. Did better than I thought. Polty, 18 points behind Pasty in P4. And Hurricane, let's see if he makes a triumphant return in Mount Panorama. He's 2 points behind in P5. I reckon Hurricane could probably mathematically win the championship, maybe, if everybody else is absent and he wins every race. Anyway, thanks once again, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this stream. Had a few, had a healthy amount of viewers, I must admit. I don't know how you guys survived that commentary. I was turning a bit crazy there halfway through with, well, not too much drama happening on track, but still very, very good results for the championship. Now, of course, next week, I think Ross Storm has already secured a different commentator. As I said, I'm not going to be able to commentate that one, so I can't wait. I'm going to be watching it live, that commentary, as soon as it's online. I can't wait to see who ends up winning the championship, the ALR Season 10 Tier 3 championship, of course, next week, Mount Panorama. So be there or be square, as I say. Make sure to tune in. But apart from that, it's been a pleasure commentating the last few races. It's been a really good time actually commentating this GT7 championship. Been some of the closest racing I've seen in a long time, and a pretty good view account as well. Very good doing these post-race comms rather than online. I mean, rather than live. Anyway, made quite a few blunders in that exit, and I think I'm losing my mind, and I think I'm losing my voice. But alas, I'm going to go now. And I'll see you when I come out of my cryogenic sleep in May, I guess, to commentate Season 13 of ALR. But until then, goodbye.